a topic that we all need to learn more about. So we have a couple of segments on this 1 hour. Yeah. First, we will hear opening remarks from Germany. Germany has been one of the main supporters of this topic, industry decarbonization, supporting both UNDP and UNIDO and the Net Zero Partnership, and also the founder of the Global Matchmaking Platform. So we will hear from Constanza, who's going to give the opening remarks. And then I will do a short presentation on what we have been doing on industry decarbonization for the NDC preparation and how we see the work going forward. And after that, we will have a panel, and that's going to be the best part of the... No offense, Constance. The best part, because we want to hear about what countries are doing. We will hear from Costa Rica and Brazil. Thanks again for making the time. We want to learn from what you are doing so we can improve also our offer. So, and then I think Ugo will come in to talk about the latest guideline that UNIDO has published. And then finally we will hear from the Global Matchmaking Platform with OECD. Right? Great. So without further ado, Constance, may I invite you to the podium?
Thank you very much, Casey. Welcome to, I think, the hottest COP ever. And I think this year marks a special occasion because it's the 10th years of, anniversary of the Paris Agreement, a historic milestone in multilateralism. And at its core is the innovation of the NDC. So every country is developing their own targets towards a shared goal of limiting the global temperature rise to 1.5 degrees, of course. And the NDCs actually present a framework for national policies, for strategies, and they also send a strong signal to businesses and private actors. And this is especially relevant for the industry sector, which we will talk about today. They are a key driver of economic development and growth. And heavy industries, or the heavy industry sector, is responsible for about a quarter of the global GHG emissions. But it's also the backbone of our economies and the livelihoods of millions of workers around the world. The decarbonization of the industry sector is an immense challenge, but it's also a great opportunity. The industrial transformation lays at the center of climate policy and climate action on the one hand, but also at the center of the economic policies in our countries. And it can deliver on climate ambition on the one hand, it can deliver on green jobs, on resilient supply chains, and also open new markets for green industrial goods. The international collaboration, country and industry-led processes, and a strong political buy-in and targeted support for businesses are key elements in advancing the important task of industry decarbonization. And the industrial transformation is particularly challenging because of the very long investment cycles we have in the industry and also the large-scale investments which are needed. And shaping the regulatory frameworks, supporting the transformation of the industrial processes in our countries is very much needed to deliver on our climate targets. And it's actually fantastic to see that so many countries are including industry-specific mitigation targets in their NDCs. And that they are also going beyond the usual energy efficiency targets. And now the big challenge is actually moving from this stage of planning to the stage of implementation. And especially in emerging markets and developing economies, this is the major challenge to do so in a very just and socially just way. And this is actually precisely where the German cooperation framework is coming in and supporting through the Climate Club and its global matchmaking platform. but also through other initiatives like the UNDP Climate Promise, the NDC Partnership. And each initiative brings their own expertise, their own network, and together they can provide a very tailored support to countries to deliver on their climate targets. And at the International Climate Initiative, where I'm coming from, we very strongly believe that this kind of international cross-sectoral collaboration is key to success. Combining really these different expertises, these different perspectives, networks and work approaches generates the highest possible impact we have in countries. And with the ICI-funded support package, we also supported countries like Uzbekistan, Kenya, Costa Rica, Brazil, Indonesia, in their endeavor to include industry targets and measures in their NDCs, and also in the next step actually, or prepare them for the next step to implement that. And I'm very pleased actually that we will hear some of the experiences today. With this emphasis on collaboration and the political will to set the right framework conditions, we also send strong market signals for the private sector, and so helping to leverage the needed resources for the transformation. And with the global matchmaking platform of the Climate Club, we also aim to facilitate this access to technical and financial assistance that countries need to accelerate their green industry development and the deep decarbonization. And the good thing actually is that the support is already provided, so it's already flowing. We have a growing network of delivery partners of the global matchmaking platform, including UNDP's Climate Promise, but also UNIDO's Net Zero Partnership for Industrial Decarbonization. And the increasing technical and financial assistance to emerging markets and developing economies is key to the coming and hopefully coming industrial transformation. So I'm very pleased to hand over to Kathy again and to hear more about the tools you developed to support countries, and also about the experiences you had already in some of the countries.
Thank you so much, Constanza, for that introduction. I'm sorry. Good to know. I was going to point here. Thank you. Okay, I am going to go really fast. This is just a slide to set the stage and explain a bit how far we've come. This way. Thank you. Great. So first about the Climate Promise. It's a UNDP initiative that then became a UN initiative, supporting NDC preparation and NDC implementation. The Climate Promise 2025 was the initiative launched by the Secretary General in 2024 to coordinate the UN system around the support for NDC 3.0. We have supported 105 countries, and out of those 105 countries, 51 countries have submitted to date, and more to come. Okay, so this revision cycle was the first time that UNDP really looked at industry decarbonization as a sector to support. And this is because industry accounts for over 25% of global emissions, but it's also central to sustainable development. So it's kind of a conundrum when you are supporting developing countries where they want to increase, they want to scale up their industry, and you are asking them at the same time to decarbonize. So for the countries that have high emissions, they have to reduce their emissions. And for the other ones, they will have to leapfrog using the technologies that already exist. So we joined, the Climate Club was established in COP28. Then there was the Global Matchmaking Platform, and thanks to support from Germany, UNDP joined the Global Matchmaking Platform in January 2025. So what are we offering? What is UNDP offering on industry decarbonization? So at first we were looking at the NDC. We were supporting, as I said, 105 countries. We wanted to see how can we help them to put industry decarbonization in their NDC first. So we were looking at the targets, implementation roadmap and financing strategy, whether you have a target in your NDC or not, because I don't think the only opportunity to include it is in the NDC. Feasibility technology needs assessment, piloting technology, and facilitating inclusive stakeholder consultation, stakeholder dialogue, especially with the private sector. Okay, just a couple of, I'm going to go fast because we are going to hear from Costa Rica. Uzbekistan is one of the countries that has also been supported on including the targets in their NDC, aligning the targets with their LT-LEDs, and also conducting a baseline GHG assessment. I don't think this works. So, we did a quick analysis of the NDC submitted to date, and you will see how the number goes from 94% to 31%. So let me explain. So we looked at the NDC and see, are they talking about industry in general? So when you just take that criteria, you will see that 94 of them are talking about industry, mostly in the IPPU sector. Then you look at a bit deeper. Do they have industry measures? So it goes down to 72% of countries that have specific industry measures. Then you start, can you hear me? Then you start looking at the hard to abate sectors, so steel and cement, and it goes down again, 63%, only 63%. And 31% are actually having measures, quantitative measure for hard to abate. So what this is telling us is, yes, there is progress. Okay. Okay. So this is just to show how we are seeing the regional priorities when it comes to industry decarbonization. You will see in Europe mature industry, so they have to decarbonize. They're talking about carbon taxes and they talk about carbon capture. In Latin America, talking about alignment with finance, or really financing that industry. Africa, some improvement, process improvement in green manufacture, but Africa and Asia are the two regions that will have to leapfrog. They really need industry growing, but they will have to look at new technologies and new fuel that exists for their industries. So we, again, just to increase the awareness on this topic. It's not a well-known topic. Even when we were talking to the countries that we support, they wonder why. Why are you asking us? Why do you think this is important? So we, with UNIDO, we have this it's really straightforward, actually really nice read, easy to read, explaining why it's important to consider industry. So looking ahead, what are we going to do? First, we are going to continue our country engagement. We have a pipeline of countries that we want to support. And beyond the climate promise, we have the entire climate portfolio of UNDP that's also looking at chemicals, metal, plastic, construction. So we are looking now, and this support has allowed UNDP to also look at its whole portfolio and see where are we doing work that's similar that we can complement with the work that we're doing within the NDC. All right, I'm going to stop there, and I would like to invite Chico. I was hesitating. Do I call you Chico or your real name? Come please, and join us. Hugo, if you would please, and Monica. Andrea, sorry. I was going to say Adriana. Yes. Thanks, Adriana. And let me grab my... Yeah, it doesn't. Francisco. Chico, okay. I was wondering where the Chico was coming from. Okay, somebody to keep time. And we have Costa Rica and... all right, sit over here. And I'm sitting on the thing. Great, wonderful. Hello. Can you all hear me? Great. Okay, we are in for a treat. Great. So we have on the stage, first to my right, we have, sorry, the heat. We have Jao Francisco Pavia Avelino, Director of the Department of Decarbonization and Green Finance of the Ministry of Industry and Trade of Brazil. To my left, we have Adriana Bonilla, Director of Climate Change of the Ministry of Environment, Costa Rica. And we have Hugo Salamanca, Industry Decarbonization Expert at UNIDO. So I have a series of questions. Somebody told me the questions were really hard. But that's because we want to learn. We want to learn so much for what you have done. You have done so much more than when you look at the average globally. So we want to learn from you here and see how that will that will inform the support that we can provide to countries. So I will start with Adriana because you're closer to me. Okay, Adriana. Costa Rica has made progress in diversifying beyond hydro to boost overall energy resilience. How is the country planning to extend its decarbonization leadership into the industrial sector? What strategic priorities or sectors will drive this next phase of Costa Rica's climate and development agenda? I think I have to give you the mic.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, we have developed basically sustainable electric metrics, but not energy as a whole. We have issues regarding energy for the transportation sector and also the industry. This is one of our probably two biggest challenge when it comes to managing and reducing our emissions. So yes, we included the industrial sector in our NDC as a priority, and as a whole, the decarbonizing the industry in general. And when we first looked for options for it, since we emphasize to design an NDC, an implementable NDC, so we started looking for options, not thinking not only to include our issues to be targeted, but also to know where to go, let's say, to start, so that we could design contributions that already have some roadmaps to tackle these issues. So when we were designing the NDC and thinking about decarbonizing the industry, we were also talking to UNDP, and they said, go to UNIDO. We didn't, I have to be honest, I didn't know UNIDO was in Costa Rica. I understand they have established a very small office within UN House, and so we talked to them, and we got in touch with this one of the program officers, I think. So the one in Germany. No. This very nice guy. Sorry. So I think he's from India or something. Okay. Sorry? Yes, him. Yeah. Thank you. So he said, when we start talking to him, and I told him, hey, for our ministry, and specifically for our minister, industry decarbonization is a priority. And so we need help, because we need to determine where to start. And he said, well, I think we could start designing a roadmap, but it's not. He started talking about cement, which is very important. We have to two manufacturers of cement only in Costa Rica, And then we knew they were also targeting steel, but we don't produce steel. So we start talking about the roadmap and the support of climate promise for this. But we also intend to target another segments of our industry. But up to now, we included this roadmap, and we are working with them, with these two producers of cement, so that we could turn these goals and NDCs regarding cement into actions based on climate promise support and UNIDO. And we are identifying, in addition to those resources they are providing us with, to know where and how to get the technical assistance they will be needing. But it's important to say that Holcim and Progreso, which are those two companies, they've already started walking this way about decarbonizing the production. But we know it's not easy because of the requirements of the industry, the clinker factor, the pressure to reduce it, but also the technical and scientific issues to do it. So that you could have resistance, endurance, and the quality of the cement, but also reduce emissions in the process of manufacturing the cement. So this is just to say that we are working this way, that we have included this in our NDC, but we have just started this path together with UNIDO, UNDP, Climate Promise, and these companies with our government.
Thank you so much, Adriana. Great. It's always good that you are at least tackling it. There's more work to be done, but at least you are doing step one of what you need to do. So great, and you can probably learn from the next speaker, Chico from Brazil. So Brazil's NDC highlights cleaner industrial production as a priority of action and promotes electrification, biofuel base, and carbon capture in heavy industry. How is Brazil planning to cut emission in its industrial sector, particularly in the energy-intensive industries such as steel and cement, while keeping them competitive globally? Can you offer some example of concrete measures under the new Industry Brazil program to support this shift? Over to you.
Hello. Can you hear me? Good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. The translation is going on. Is that translation going on? Okay. Okay. Okay, no I thought maybe it was okay. So it's great to be here. I think the competitiveness part that you mentioned is very important to us. It's something that our minister and Vice President Geraldo Alckmin mentions a lot. That we can't lose sight of that. You know, we can't put the bar too high to a point where our industry has no competitiveness and has to close factories, because we sometimes joke around that the best way to end all industrial emissions is to close all the factories in Brazil. So that's not something we want. And what we hear from our sector is also, if we are competing against international companies that don't have the same sustainability standards that we have, it's something that makes it unfair. So I think with the advancement of agendas such as, carbon credit markets, with, the CBAM in Europe, that we have some issues with CBAM, but I mean, the initiative is good. You start to level the playing field. And in regards to Brazilian emissions, we are very different from the rest of the world. You mentioned here it's maybe a quarter of the emissions, the average of the world. In Brazil, it's about 7%. And our energetic matrix is already very clean. So if you think about electrifying the grid, we already have it 90% renewable energy in the grid. 50% of all the energy consumption in Brazil is already renewable. We have mandates to put 30% of ethanol in our gasoline. We have mandates now for biomethane. 90% of Brazilian light vehicles can operate both on gasoline and ethanol, so we have a very big biofuel industry in Brazil already. So in that sense, we are already a lot of steps ahead of the average of the world. Even OECD countries, I think electric matrix is 30-something%, and the total energetic matrix is 13-15% renewable. So we are years ahead of other countries, and in that sense, we have to use our sustainability, the sustainability of our industries, to leverage our competitiveness. So as the world, as the world shifts to put a value, a price on sustainability, we feel that Brazil is very much in a strategic position to help the world decarbonize. In terms of what we are doing already, the average emissions of the Brazilian hard-to-abate sectors are already lower than the worldwide average. We already have, for example, the aluminum sector. We have a very, very high rate of recycled aluminum, so that lowers a lot the emissions of that sector. In the cement sector, we have extensive use of biomass and residues that lower the carbon intensity also. In the steel sector, we have the use of renewable charcoal, from reforestation, that it's already putting in the energetic mix. So we have these low-hanging fruits, particularly in the circular economy, that can be a factor to decarbonize. And in the long run, we are trying to build an ecosystem that can support these sectors and these companies to get there. So we are developing incubators for new technologies. We are in contact with our National Development Bank and international financiers, multilateral development banks, to see how we can access concessional funds or lower rate funds to incentivize these sectors. We are studying mechanism of public procurement to put in a sustainability criteria in it, so we can show. We think that the demand also is going to drive this change. So if the government can at least guarantee a little bit of demand through public procurement, then maybe you can start this industry to mobilize itself to change. And so you have to pile up the public policy that's being built in regards to financing, to R&D, to demand creation, and also to these feedstocks that are going to allow these sectors to decarbonize. So what we hear sometimes from the hard-to-abate sectors is, even if I wanted to change my plants to use green hydrogen or biomethane, there's not enough supply for me to guarantee that. So how can I change, invest billions of dollars into changing my industrial process if I don't even have the guarantee that I have the supply of these feedstocks? So that's something that we have to look at also. So we have to look at the whole process from the new technologies to the feedstock to preparing also these professionals to get these more qualified, high-paying jobs, right? Because we don't want also for companies to come to Brazil and bring from the outside the high-paying jobs. We want to prepare the Brazilian worker to be able to occupy these higher positions. So to think about it as the whole process of the project preparation in the country, setting the regulatory framework and financial incentives to the right place, that's something that we are trying to coordinate and fix in how to integrate all these agendas. In regards to, as I was saying, our our electric matrix, our energetic matrix is already very much renewable. So we have to shift to not subsidize generation of renewable energy anymore, but to how do you use this renewable energy. So the subsidies have to go to the next step in the supply chain. So if you are hard to abate sector trying to lower your emissions, then we think it's strategic that you have subsidies and government incentive for that, and not only generating, solar and wind power, because we feel we are already there. And sometimes the discussion is a bit contaminated because we know that mainly Europe is the main driver of this sustainability discussion. And in Europe, decarbonizing the grid is still very much important. So we have to be careful, and it's good to have, friends from hello, friends from the global south here with us, that we have to identify our own position, in this map, and how we can contribute to decarbonizing the global industry agenda, and not only, receive what is perceived as sustainability from European countries that have different realities from our own, and try to put forward what our priorities are and work together, global north and global south, in an integrated point of view, not only, from assistance and donations, but how can the global north see the global south as something that will help the global north to decarbonize also, so we can, do our part in the equation. So I think I talked too much. Sorry.
We can listen to it all day if we had time all day. Super interesting. I think it's really interesting, and I hope Costa Rica, since you are starting, and Brazil has events, it's really good to look at the whole ecosystem, as they say, looking at, the feedstock, and looking at the technology, looking at the jobs, looking at the regulation, the creating the demand and all that. So it's a whole chain that you have to look at. So hopefully your roadmap will help you figure that out as well as you get. Yeah. Great. So the third panelist is Hugo. And Hugo, based on UNIDO's net zero partnership experience supporting countries around the world, with what practical lessons can be drawn from NDC targets to industrial decarbonization implementation? So from target setting to implementation. Thanks, Hugo.
Can you hear me well? Perfect. So the experience that we have had over the year, now that we launched we'll see later, the toolkit for NDC enhancement through the NDP, what we have seen is that it's kind of the first signal to the industry. So at last COP, cement companies used to come and say, if in our country there was a clear NDC with clear industry targets, then we would commit. We have kind of this willingness to engage in this transition. We know it's happening. We've seen what Europe is doing. We see what China is doing. And if we don't embark now, we'll be missing the train. Some countries that have been attempted, to disengage from the Paris Agreement. For instance, not to name a few, but we've been working with Argentina, for instance, and the position and the priorities of the countries have been changing. But the industry there has been telling us, we don't want to wait 5 years. We need these 5 years. 5 years from now it will be too late. So the first step, has been to push that through NDCs. The private sector is committed to making more investment, or at least that's what they're saying, right? That's the first thing. Then, after you have these NDCs, or as a first kind of a signal, you have then exactly what Costa Rica has been mentioning. You need a clear roadmap, sector-specific roadmap. Ideally, you have sector-specific targets in the NDCs. But we've seen that having a good NDC is a lot of work. That's why most of the countries are late. The deadline was in February. But why is it that? It's just because now they're committed to doing or publishing new but good NDCs, and that takes time, that needs reflection, that needs data. So NDCs, ideally, they have sector-specific targets. But if not, then you can develop roadmaps that are specific to each of the core industries of your country that will then allow to show maturity for this catalytic effect of attracting the global community to support countries that have clear actions and roadmaps and clear actions with cost benefits behind them. So this is the experience that we have, is that there is a clear signal from countries that countries can give through NDCs, but also through the roadmaps for the international community to prioritize those countries that have a clear national strategy. And I'll stop there.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I am going to stop here with the questions just to make time for Ugo, who has a presentation, and for our colleague from OECD. I had so many more questions for you, but maybe that's going to be for another panel. Really, Ugo, merci, because I'm so used to speaking French with you. I'm switching to French. Thank you so much. I think the signal that the NDCs are giving are really, really important. And it's also, when you are setting a target in a country, you have to sit down and talk with the companies themselves, right? So I think the process of NDC is so important in having the buy-in at the country level, at the industry level, so that you can then implement. But even if you don't have it in the NDC, it doesn't mean that you cannot do it. And then I think that's the message now that NDCs are being submitted. It doesn't mean that you have missed the boat. There is still an opportunity to do it. So thank you very much for this great panel. Thanks. I've learned a lot always from you. And we'll keep the conversation going. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Maybe two of the countries that have the lowest grid in terms of carbon footprints. I think Costa Rica may be 100% of renewable or close.
Yes.
Compared to 90%. Yeah, it's impressive.
The floor is yours. We go.
Yes, Japanese people from the energy sector.
Yes.
They te estoy hablando vos en inglés. Fíjate que se reunieron con gente del ICE, Instituto de Costa Rica de Electricidad, y le dijeron que cómo hacían para
Sí.
tener una matriz 95%.
95%, 100% pensaba que era. Kathy, do you have the I lost kind of the Thanks. I'll be going fast because we're a bit constrained by time. But just to give you maybe a bit of an overview of the work that we have just published, which is the volume 2. It's slow, maybe. Okay. Yeah, if we can go to the next presentation. Also, because I'll be going fast. The first volume of the guidebook has been to provide guidelines on how to go through the NDC process. This was really to feed into the timelines. You can go to the next slide. So yeah, maybe just a quick presentation of the NDP. The NDP is providing support to countries from the policy support. So this has been the focus on NDCs over the years, but also pipeline development of projects, and finally the knowledge sharing. If we go to the next slide, we see that over this year, we have been developing a policy NDC support toolkit that goes from supporting step by step through guidance, but also through a mitigation modeling tool, which allows to put the figures behind the measures to provide the best NDC possible, and finally providing technical assistance. If we can go to the next slide, we'll see that we've been working over the year. If we can go to next slide, yeah. So the first volume was just to go through the process, and the volume 2 is now to put the measures and the PAMs and the policies that will support the new NDC. So the volume 1 was about going through the process, and volume 2 is about what you put in your NDC. If we can go to the next slide, the key idea is here to give countries a way to prioritize the measures that they should be focusing on. And how to prioritize, if we go to the next slide, is by providing as much data as we can. So there will be different blocks in our NDC. So it's about thinking about policies according to 5 different dimensions, using renewables, energy efficiency, energy fuel switching. But most importantly, what this guidebook is doing is providing a decision tree. So this decision tree provides you kind of a clear roadmap and step-by-step guidance on which policies you should be considering according to where you stand. And then having this priority tree according to short-term, medium-term, and long-term action. If we can go to the next slide, the five building blocks have been material efficiency, reducing the need for materials to decarbonize, producing them better through energy efficiency, electrifying process and using better energy, and finally, when everything has been used, of course, the carbon capture block. If you go to the next slide, the decision tree works in a clear, easy way. It's a question and answer approach. Do you have this or not? And then you move across the decision tree to end up with the policies that could fit your strategy. If we go to the next slide, for each of these blocks, we'll have a mapping of the enabling factors. We'll have prioritization according to where you stand. Would it make more sense to go to fuel switching? Will it make more sense to go for carbon capture, etc.? Next slide. Then we will have, and most importantly, the MAC curves. So how much money is spent for every ton of CO2 reduced for that measure? So you start with having a panel of a lot of measures, then the decision tree will allow you to identify which ones make more sense to your specific condition, and then your prioritization will be done according to which one makes more sense on the cost-benefit point of view. How much is spent for every ton of carbon that you'll be emitting, according to the data that we have, of course. If we can go to the next slide. So that's the decision tree. Again, simple way to make it maybe easier, yes and no questions to each of the steps where you are. Next slide. Then based on clear case studies, so in case you want an illustration of what has been done on specific measures across the world, both trying to reflect what emerging economies are doing and also developed countries. So trying to find in-between examples out there. Next slide. Of course, we have other approaches. As Francisco Chico was saying, you need a combination of measures to go from the policy to the support and to public procurement and industrial hubs to ensure that you have both innovation, you build on what is existing, and you also give the full political support behind those policies. If you go to the next slide, again, mapping all the publications that you can base yourself on the data, providing as much information as possible, but processed. And finally, making sure that, again, you have the annex, so the guidebook will provide the annex with all the cost-benefit actions. I think we're reaching, yeah. Maybe just a final slide on the Mythical Toolkit. The Mythical Toolkit allows you to model for each of these measures what would be the savings according to different scenarios. So that provides some figures behind the measures that you are evaluating. Next slide, please. And happy to share the guidebook. And on that note, maybe I'll hand it over to my colleague, Deger Segin, leading industrial decarbonization work at OECD.
Yes, thank you so much, and thanks for going fast. There is so much information there. Was there a link or something to access? Okay, great, awesome. So now we have Deger Segin from OECD, industry project lead and senior advisor to the Climate Club, who's going to just give reflections on this event and close us off. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I mean, we've heard quite different views from the countries, from international organizations on the industry decarbonization and what that means for the NDC dialogue. Now, maybe just one explanation on what Climate Club is. It's an initiative that is co-hosted by the OECD and the IEA, its secretariat. A majority of its work is delivered by these two organizations, with also UNIDO being an implementing partner of its global matchmaking platform. There are 46 members of the Climate Club. Costa Rica is one of them. Brazil, although not a member, it has joined several of our dialogues on the different priorities when it comes to industry decarbonization. For this meeting, I have intentionally not prepared anything to specifically say. I wanted to hear this dialogue, but I came with some results of the analysis. So something which you've done at the UNDP We've done also something very similar at the Climate Club. It's still work in progress because we wanted to wait the results of the COP. As you know, during the New York Climate Week, there has been a huge number of NDCs being announced, and here even more obviously. And let's see what comes out of it. But we have some conclusions. What we've seen, a majority of the economies that have provided an NDC, like you mentioned, says something on industry. Obviously, it's mainly under IPPU, but the actual emissions of the industry is under the energy sector, so the fossil fuel consumption. And my colleagues from both Brazil and Costa Rica have mentioned also that how do we deal with the decarbonization? That's the key question. Now, when it comes to the detailed reflection of how industry decarbonization is mentioned in the NDCs, the story is a bit different. Specific targets are not so many. Let's say X number of plants I will decarbonize by 2035. Or I will reduce the energy demand of my specific sector, this and that, by 2035, not so many. So that type of specific target is not so common. But some general ambitions, some general, let's say, visions of where the industry will go is mentioned. So that's a very positive outcome. Another important outcome is the listing of the technologies that will be needed for decarbonization of the industry. The more traditional low carbon technologies like energy efficiency, some renewable heating, we've heard on the importance of biomass also as a feedstock, are mentioned. Some circular economy approaches are mentioned, but disruptive technologies like hydrogen, like carbon capture, use and storage are rarely referenced. So when you think of the industry decarbonization as a whole, you need the whole spectrum of technologies. And those disruptive technologies or more, let's say, breakthroughs are necessary for the full decarbonization. So that's another area which I think deserves attention. Then we looked at three additional indicators. One is finance and investment. The other one is capacity building and technology transfer. And the third one is the just transition aspect. So what do we draw from that? And as you imagine, I speak mainly from the emerging market perspective because that's, I guess, also this discussion is all about. Now, it is essential that the target is associated with the investment and the finance. Investment, okay, how many $1 billion I need to put money, but where that money will come from. So that indicator is generally mentioned for the entire energy system or the total economy, but specifically for industry, there are only few countries who quantify that. Why is this important? Because if I would be a donor government or a MDB, a multilateral development bank who wants to finance the industry decarbonization in a given country, I want to know how much the finance is needed. And some countries are even going more ambitious to say, I will finance so much of my industry from public and so much will come from private. This is also essential. It's few, but there are good best practices. On the just transition aspect, I think it's quite positive. Many countries are mentioning the just transition importance in the context of industry decarbonization. So there's general understanding and the policy is steering towards that. And then finally on the capacity building and tech transfer, which is essential for many emerging markets and developing economies. This is also an area we observed that it is growing in terms of importance. Now, my colleague from Brazil mentioned a very few important topics in the context of the industry decarbonization, whether it's in the NDC or not. I think your message is key. Maybe we did not yet put it in the NDC, but that doesn't matter. We can still catch up and then we can still accelerate on the industry decarbonization. But what's most needed is the finance, where the money will come to decarbonize the industries. We released 2 days ago, as OECD and IEA, which are also co-hosting the Climate Club Secretariat, an important report on industry decarbonization financing and assistance. The total investment need in the next 10 years, so from today to 2035, is at least $350 billion for steel and cement, near zero steel, near zero cement, in emerging markets, developing economies. 350 billion collectively in 10 years. And we need to mobilize at least $2 billion international public finance per year to mobilize the private capital needed for this investment. Public finance is critical. At the OECD, we work very much on how that can be brought, where that can be brought, but it is insufficient. There are so many other priorities in other countries, Brazil, here, everywhere, for public finance. Industry is just one tiny segment. So we need to use the public finance very, very strategically to mobilize the private capital, and we need to understand for the NDCs, but for the broader industry, how the private capital will be mobilized. And there's a few instruments, I'll briefly mention them and I'll stop here. My colleague again mentioned a very important one, create demand, public procurement. Some countries can do this easily, others cannot do. They need off-taker from other countries, but creating demand is key. Other one is de-risking across the entire value chain of the industry decarbonization. You need de-risking to create and ensure there is revenue. That's when the private capital will come. If there's no revenue, it's risky. You need de-risking to reduce the cost of capital because the perceived risk in industry decarbonization are very high in some of the emerging markets, developing economies. So we need to see how that will be reduced. It's also two additional things. You need support on the capital cost because it's high capital cost. We see viability gap funds and the public finance, like concessional loan can be used there. It's important. But there's also the operation cost. That's also high. People talk about running the plants with hydrogen. Hydrogen is not cheap. So how am I going to reduce my operation cost? Then you have contract for differences. Now many countries are looking into this, coupled with carbon markets. So the de-risking and the financing is key. With the overall enabling conditions, which are examples of I gave from the NDC, just transition, the finance assessment, the roadmaps, which you mentioned, Hugo, all that stuff is necessary, and then I can build with the financing. So it's not too late. There's still big opportunity, but a lot of work still to do. And as the Climate Club, we are very happy to host the dialogue, and as the OECD, we are very happy to support the countries on the financing side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for wrapping us up with that information, which is so important, the finance part. I think we will all be interested in seeing that study. It's a good complement to everything that has been discussed. Without the finance, you can have as many targets as you want. It's not going to happen. Okay, well, with that, I thank you all for being with us. It's a small crowd, but mighty. And it's a really good topic that we will continue the conversation. It's just starting. I feel it's just starting. There is so much more to be done in this sector. Thank you so much, and wishing you all a good day.